It's time for Come and Talk It with your host, Michael Cargill, brought to you by Texas Law Shield. Over the last decade, Michael has championed and supported the rights of law-abiding Texans to own and use firearms. He is the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, a veteran of the United States Army, and has achieved national exposure in such prestigious media outlets such as Forbes Magazine, Fox Business News, CNN Money, AOL, BBC World News, Huffington Post, and the New York Times. Cargill vigorously defends lawful gun ownership in this country without regard to party politics. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
Good day, Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. All right, so folks, man, we have a loaded show for you today. Texas DAs, the Texas District Attorney's Office, whether it's Killeen, Texas, whether it's Austin, Texas, they could have stopped a mass shooting by previously prosecuting the actual shooter. So let's talk about that. Your Texas district attorneys, in these liberal cities, we're talking Killeen, Texas, a liberal DA. We're talking Austin, Texas, a liberal DA, actually had the opportunity to stop the mass shooting that happened in Austin, Texas back in 2021 on 6th Street, where several people were shot and one person actually died from that shooting. So let's go back a little bit. Tyler Allison was shot in 2020, while waiting for an Uber near Austin Police Station. This guy, just finished going downtown 6th Street. He walked over to the police station to wait for his Uber to pick him up, to take him back home. And random people were shooting at each other, ended up shooting Tyler, an innocent person. And, he has metal parts in his leg. Also, Lawrence Leitner and Nick Kantor are the family members of Mr. Kantor, who was actually shot and killed in the mass shooting that took place on 6th Street in 2021. But you know what? Let's go back a little bit. In 2020, Charles Davis Dre was actually shot also, but he was shot in Killeen, Texas, randomly going into a store. This guy decided he was just going to pull a gun out and fire rounds at Charles Davis Dre because he didn't like the way he was looking at him. And you ask, and I want to ask you, what do all these shootings have in common? One took place in 2019. One took place in 2020. The other one took place in 2021. What do they have in common? Well, allegedly, all of these are the same shooter. That's right. So your district attorneys had the opportunity to stop these shootings, and they have not prosecuted anyone even today. Here we are in 2022, and no one's been prosecuted. 2019, Tyler was shot. 2020, Charles Davis Dre was shot. 2021, Doug Kantor was shot and killed. And no one's been prosecuted still to this day. Your district attorneys, your DA in Austin, Texas, or Killeen, Texas, had the opportunity to stop these shootings because allegedly they're by the same shooter. Can't even make this stuff up, people. Can't even make it up. All three shootings have one thing in common. The shooter was allegedly De'Ondre Jermirris White is the name of the shooter. And something needs to be done. In other news, the LA Police Department, they're being trained in ancient occult practice of witching to solve crimes. And, we're going to talk about that also later in the show. But you know what? There's some breaking news. There's some breaking news from the federal government. That's right. Your ATF, your alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Guess what they've done? Yes, people. FRTs, force reset triggers, are now banned. So if you own one, you are now a felon. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives recently examined devices commonly known as force reset triggers, FRTs, and has determined that some of them are firearms and machine guns, as defined in the National Firearms Act, the NFA, and machine guns as defined in the Gun Control Act, GSA. These particular FRTs are being marketed as replacement triggers for AR-type firearms, unlike traditional triggers and binary triggers, sometimes referred to as generally as FRTs. the subject FRTs do not require shooters to pull and then subsequently release the trigger to fire a second shot. Instead, these FRTs, these force reset triggers, utilize the firing cycle to eliminate the need for the shooter to release the trigger before a second shot is fired. By contrast, some aftermarket triggers have similar components, but also incorporate a disconnector or similar feature to ensure that the trigger must be released before a second shot may be fired and may not be a machine gun. So what they're saying, people, is that any weapon which shoots or is designed to shoot or can be readily restored to shoot automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. The term shall also include the frame or receiver or of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely and exclusively, or a combination of parts designed and intended for use and converting a weapon into a machine gun, and any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled if such parts are in the possession or under the control of a person. You're now considered a felon if you did not go through the NFA process. The ATF's examination found that some FRT devices allow for a firearm to automatically expel more than one shot with a single continuous pull of the trigger. For this reason, ATF has concluded that FRTs that function in this way are a combination of parts designed and intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun. And hence, ATF has classified these devices as a machine gun as defined in the National Firearms Act and GCA. Accordingly, ATF's position is that any FRT that allows a firearm to automatically expel more than one shot with a single continuous pull of the trigger is a machine gun and is accordingly subject to the GSA prohibitions and regarding the possession, transfer, and transport of machine guns under 18 U.S.C. So, if you're in possession of these, your alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, that agency has now created law. And if you're familiar with the Constitution, you're familiar with how our laws are actually made in this country, you would know that, by executive order, your president can do certain things. It has certain powers. Congress, has powers to do certain things, a lot of things. And then the judicial branch has the power to interpret that and give us the interpretation of that, in which creates certain things. But guess what? Now, apparently, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms has powers that are not in the Constitution. They can interpret and create law.
How did they get these powers?
Apparently, we've allowed them to do it without even holding anything back. We've allowed the ATF to come in and turn hundreds of thousands of Americans into felons overnight. If you're in possession of a FRT, a force reset trigger, according to the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, you're now considered a felon. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back. Like I said, we have a lot to talk about today because, we're talking about the same shooting. I'm kind of frustrated because we have an opportunity to prevent crime here. We have an opportunity to stop the violence. And time after time, you have your liberal mayors in these different cities want to come after legal gun owners instead of going after people that are not supposed to be in possession of firearms in the first place, people that are committing crimes. Instead of doing that, they focus their attention on the legal gun owners instead of the actual criminals. And so I want to talk about this shooting that happened in Killeen, Texas. One person injured in a shooting. Casings are found at a local store, and give you kind of a breakdown of actually what happened. So this happened back in Killeen, Texas, back in May of 2020. And Killeen police, they investigated a person suffering from gunshot wounds and showed up at a local hospital. And police say that they were called to the Mickey's convenience food store where one person was shot, and they found shell casings, and it was just a really bloody scene. And we actually have a vehicle, which we'll show you later on, because I want to bring in the mother of the victim of this, and we'll show you the pictures a little later, where, the guy basically went to a convenience store in Killeen, Texas, and when they pull up to the store, they get out of their vehicle, and the young lady that was with the young man, knew one of the guys in the vehicle, said, "Hi, how you doing?" Gave him a hug. And because the young man looked back at the guy in the vehicle, he didn't like the way he looked at him. He pulled out a gun and just started firing rounds. He fired 9 shots into the vehicle. If the guy hadn't ducked, he would be dead today. Fortunately, he was just injured, but it was just blood everywhere. The young lady had to put him in a vehicle. They had to drive to the hospital and get him some assistance there pretty quick. It was just a crazy, bloody scene. There was so much blood that they had to total the vehicle. And there are 9 shots in the side of this vehicle. Like I said, we'll show you this later. But I do want to bring into the conversation the mother. I do want to talk with, let me see here, The mother, which is Nicole Clegg Andrews. I want to talk with Nicole to tell us a little bit about what happened that particular day, and who's the person that allegedly pulled the trigger. Who was the shooter? Nicole, welcome to Come and Talk It.
Hi, how y'all doing? Actually, I knew Killeen was bad. I'm gonna say this. I was a military member. I was in the Army for 10 years, and my husband was in the Army for 22.
Oh, so you're a United States Army veteran, serving our country, who served our country. Yeah, okay. All right, go ahead, Nicole.
So I never thought that, because we was in Columbia working, and I came home because I have a house here. I had a house. I sold my house. I never thought that I would get that phone call. So we was at a friend's house, and I kept getting these phone calls. And I was looking at my phone like, okay, I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore it. But I end up answering my call. And like, what's going on? And they said they got shot. Who? And I'm going to tell you how I sound. Who? Because I was hurt. Who got shot?
Yeah,
and that's what I said.
Because you're wondering, who is they?
Yeah, who? And I was like, who got shot? They said Chucky and Kiki. I could not even hold my phone. I looked at my husband. I looked at my friend. I said, no. I never thought that. I mean, it happened. It happened. I was like, no. He was at Metroplex. So I go to Metroplex. It was called Metroplex at that time.
And that's the hospital?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We went to Metroplex, and I stood there, and I looked at my car, because it was my car. And I'm looking like, I seen 9 bullet holes. The first thing I did was look back at those doors of the hospital. I looked back at them, and I was thinking, Nicole, go check on your son. When I walked in that hospital, they looked at me and said, he's okay. If my son had not ducked, he would have been killed. And it all happened because they left out of a store, and my son looked at Andre White, and I'm going to call his name Andre White, and looked at him because he looked at him wrong. Andre White pulled that gun out and started shooting.
And the funny thing about this is, De'Ondre White is the same shooter
in Austin,
Texas, of the mass shooting that we had.
Mm-hmm.
The same De'Ondre White is allegedly the same shooter that pulled the trigger, and responsible for injuring like over a dozen people and killing one person in Austin, Texas, of a mass shooting in downtown Austin in 2021. And you're saying your shooting took place what year?
It was the year following, because I told my son it was 2020. But let me tell you what I told my son. The detectives came to my home and pulled out different pictures of people. The detective made a mistake and said, because he didn't want me to know who he was. He said, Dre. I looked at the detective. I said, you called his name. That's how I said, you called his name. It's Dre. You don't want me to know that. I told him, I said, you did not want me to know that. Yeah, Dre shot my son. He did. And I looked at him. I said, okay, but it's nothing I could do about it. You all have to do something about it. So I called the detective after that shooting in Austin. I kept calling KPT. I said, let me tell y'all something.
So let's go back. Let's go back a little bit. So so once your son was shot in 2020. And so you heard about the shooting that happened in Austin, Texas in 2021, and you remember that name of De'Ondre White, and you said, you know what? Let me call the detectives and say, hey, that shooting that happened in Austin, Texas was the same person that shot my son in 2020 in Killeen, Texas.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And how? Because my son told me. He called me up. I was at work, and he said, Mom, look at this picture. And he said the dude had dreads. Well, I have to say dude. He said he had dreads. Mom, he said, Mom, that's that same one that shot me. I said, I know it's him.
And I think we got pictures of this little punk, too.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we have a picture of this little punk. I want everyone to see this punk that allegedly did this. All right, go ahead.
So how can you? Because my son's 28, but my thing is, how can you just literally carry a gun around because you mad because somebody looked at you and you want to start shooting? You just want to start shooting at somebody because you're mad. And that's what he did in Austin, Texas. Let me tell you what I told my son. My son is terrorized by that. Because I was in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
So I already know if you get shot at, you're going to have some PTSD. That's where I get my disability from. This I told my son. I said, listen, Chucky, don't worry about Dre. I said, because I'm going to tell you something, son. He's going to do it again. And he's going to get caught. And he got caught a year later. I said, he's going to do it again. And he did.
Mm.
My son called me right now. My son my son is calling me right now.
Okay. So I want to make sure, so he did this shooting. He shot your son in 2020. And then you see the news reports of what happened in Austin, Texas. They released the name of the person that was allegedly responsible for the shooting in Austin, Texas, of the mass shooting. And they released the name of De'Ondre White. And so you say, you get online and you Google and you search for the family members of the victim in Austin, Texas. I think we lost her for a second. She'll come back. I think she's trying to get her son on the phone because I think he's calling in as well.
I'm here. I'm here.
All right, go ahead. So you actually went on Google. You went online and searched for the victim's family of the person that was shot and killed in Austin, Texas. The Kantors.
I did.
And then what happened?
Well, I was just thinking about the shooting, and I remember my son calling me, showing me the picture, and he says, "Mom, that's Dre. That's the one that shot me." I said, "No," because I remember him saying he had dread. So I started thinking about some things, and I looked them up. At first, I talked to the son. Well, the son called me back, and then the uncle called me, and I was like, I can't let this go because Dre White got away with a lot of things. I can't let this go. So I started reaching out to family members, and they started calling me. That's sad. It's senseless. It's sad. I want Dre. I hate to say it. I used to be a correctional officer.
Go ahead. You can say it.
You might not like what I'm going to say, but I want Dre White to get the death penalty. I do. I'm sorry. I do. Because you can't just, I got to go. I'm just gonna go shoot somebody. No, you cannot do that, son. No, I want you to die. I really do.
And the sad thing about this is their district attorney in Killeen, Texas, had an opportunity to stop the mass shooting that took place in Austin, Texas, and they did nothing. And also, we're going to present another case to you where they had an opportunity to stop the mass shooting in Austin, Texas, and they did nothing. They also had an opportunity to stop the shooting that took place in Killeen, Texas, and they did nothing. There was an opportunity to stop both of those shootings because there's another shooting that took place in 2019, and your DA in Austin, Texas did nothing. Your DA in Killeen, Texas did nothing, and nothing has been done. They don't think you're stupid. They know you're stupid. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Hi, this is Stephen Williford, the Barefoot Defender. I get my global gun news from Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean, or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned,
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
That's right. We're back, and we got some breaking news coming from the federal government. That's right. The Occult Tobacco and Firearms says that, well, the definition of a machine gun, just so you know, according to the 26 USC, says that any weapon which shoots, is designed to shoot, or can be readily restored to shoot, automatically more than one shot without manual reloading by a single function of the trigger. The term shall also include the frame or receiver of any such weapon, any part designed and intended solely, exclusively, or a combination of parts designed and intended for use in converting a weapon into a machine gun. The ATF says that, guess what, folks? ATF's examination found that the FRT devices allow a firearm to automatically expel more than one shot with a single continuous pull of the trigger, and is considered an NFA item, National Firearms Act item, and it's considered something that you need to pay a $200 tax stamp fee and get permission from the federal government and get it registered with the serial number. And if you have one of those, you are committing a felony. They've literally turned thousands of citizens into felons overnight.
Hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands of citizens into felons overnight by a stroke of a pen.
I've heard estimations that there are 250,000 of those out.
Are they really?
And by the end of the year, 500,000.
Mm.
Because they're still for sale on Rare Breed's website. Rare Breed has not been rated by the ATF.
And what's probably going to happen is they're going to raid them, serve them with a warrant, get a list of names and addresses and telephone numbers of people that own those, most likely. We'll see what happens. So, get ready. It's coming. This administration is just crazy. It's, we're just like forgetting, the way things are supposed to work. We're just bypassing the Constitution. Congress creates law. Congress hasn't come down and said, hey, these items are part of the NFA list. Congress does this. Congress adds things to the National Firearms Act, not your alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, not an agency of the federal government. That's
appointed members.
Yeah, that's not how things work. But here we are today. And so, you need to contact your elected official, contact your U.S. senator, contact your U.S. congressman or congresswoman and say, hey, something needs to be done. This needs to stop. Make sure it's a pro-Second Amendment senator and pro-Second Amendment congressman or congresswoman, congressperson, to make sure that you give them a call and let them know something needs to be done, because this cannot stand. All right. But we're talking about the shootings. We're talking about mass shootings that, there's so many shootings, Zach, that have taken place in Austin, Texas. We've had shootings, it's been crazy. It's like a Wild Wild West, South by Southwest is a shooting, ACL Festival, something goes. Every time there's a major event in Austin, Texas, there's some type of, really bad shooting downtown. And, we've had a combination of things have happened, with COVID-19, because of, COVID, and because of the liquor license and things of that nature, that kind of changed the gun status in some of the bar/restaurants, and whether or not you can take a gun or a knife over 5.1 inches out of a bar or a restaurant. So, some things have changed because of that, because of COVID. And if you don't understand that, I suggest you take a license to carry handgun course so you can understand what the law is.
Well, it sounds like it may or may not be the same individual doing these shootings.
Yeah. So allegedly, in all these shootings, the ones that we're talking about today, allegedly, this is going to be the same group of people, same group, allegedly in all these shootings. And I'm telling you right now, that is a shame. And your district attorney, your elected official in Travis County has done nothing to address this or stop it. They've had the opportunity to save lives, and they've done nothing. But what they will do is they will stand in front of you in the news at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock and tell you that they're trying to reduce gun crime, is what they'll tell you. We're trying to get illegal guns off the street. We're trying to reduce, the murders in Austin, Texas. And I'm telling you now, they're lying to you. They don't think you're stupid. They know you're stupid. They're completely lying to you because they're doing nothing to stop these crimes. We have a mass shooting, and another shooting happened the year before, another shooting happened the year before that, and not one district attorney has done anything to stop any of these shootings. I want to bring into the conversation the Kantors, the Kantor family. Doug Kantor was a victim of the mass shooting that took place in Austin, Texas in 2021 during the Rot Rally at that time. And so I want to bring them into the conversation. We think we have them on Skype now. All right, Larry Leitner, Mr. Leitner, which is the uncle of Doug Kantor. Welcome to Come and Talk It, sir.
Thank you. How are you?
Doing outstanding, sir. All right, so we're talking about, we actually spoke with the mother in Killeen, Texas. We spoke with her in reference to her son being shot in Killeen by the same guy, De'Ondre White, a year prior to your nephew being shot and killed in Austin, Texas, and nothing being done. Can you give us an update of what's going on with your case and, how you feel this is being handled by the Travis County District Attorney's Office?
Well, it's still having some delays from COVID. There's still a lot of back and forth between the attorneys about but kind of what we're upset about right now is they let this kid Jeremiah Tab loose and he was the one that had the murder weapon the whole time since June, apparently. So he's loose. We weren't too happy about that. We spoke to the district attorney. Everybody keeps telling us it's for the best. I don't see how that letting anybody go.
So you're telling me that someone was hiding the murder weapon, and all of a sudden they recovered the murder weapon, but they don't get the person that was hiding the murder weapon.
Well, they arrested him. He was trying to sell it on social media.
Oh, so he was trying to sell. Oh, okay. So he's trying to sell the gun online and gets caught.
Right. Now he's kind of the catalyst for my nephew getting shot because he shot this 15-year-old who his name's never been brought up. But he did a drive-by apparently in Killeen, shot a 15-year-old in the leg, 2 weeks, but never gets arrested. Everybody seems to know it was him. 2 weeks later, he finds out that the 15-year-old is on his way to 6th Street, jumps in a car with actually 2 cars with all his friends, go down to Killeen, they meet on the street, and that's when this third individual, Jeremiah White, pulled out the gun and just started shooting. And then apparently this kid Tab, they all left with the murder weapon, went back to Killeen, and apparently he's been holding onto it for 6 months and eventually tried to sell it on the internet. And that's how the detectives, thankfully, are pretty alert. They went up and arrested him.
All right, and we're talking about Killeen, Texas. All right,
Correct.
Man, I tell you, this is just insane. It's insane to me how you can. This is how these people graduate to the next level. There's no accountability whatsoever. So since they're not held accountable for the first incident, then they graduate. They have street cred. You know what, man? I got away with that right there, boy. I can get away with anything.
Absolutely.
I have no fear. That's where I'll pop a cap in anybody now. So they let me get away with that. Let me go on to the next thing. Anytime someone does something to me, I don't like what they say, what they do, the way they look. You know what? I'm going to pull my gun out and just blow them away and shoot anybody. Doesn't matter. I don't care because you know what? No one's going to hold me responsible. I'm not going to be held accountable for my actions.
All right. Well, this kid White that pulled the gun, he wasn't. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes up in Killeen. They're obviously all traveling 70 miles south to sell drugs on 6th Street. What else is 15-year-old gang members doing 70 miles from home
Mm.
in the middle of the night. All right, so they get there, they have their beef, they start shooting. But White wasn't part of this kid, Tab, shooting the other kid, from what I understand. He just reacted. I mean, his friend had words with someone else, and he just decided to start shooting. And 14 people injured and one murdered later. He still hasn't seen trial yet.
This is sad. And this is what, this is what we've elected our, district attorney to do, in Killeen, Texas, and also in Austin, Texas, to just let people just randomly shoot innocent people on the street and not hold them accountable.
Did I hear correctly? He went and indicted like 21 police officers?
Oh, he has time for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has plenty of time for that.
I'm fascinated. I don't get it.
Yeah. We have time to indict law enforcement. We don't have time to indict the criminals.
Well, and there was also, I think, a sergeant that made a wrong turn and ended up in the middle of a big protest and ended up shooting somebody, but turning himself in and getting released, for self-defense.
Sergeant of the United States Army. That's right. Yeah. And who was working part-time for a rideshare company, and happened in 2020. He was a sergeant of the United States Army working for a rideshare company, picked up a passenger, dropped off a passenger on the 4th Street. He goes to Congress, makes a right onto Congress. As he makes that right, there's a protest, in the roadway, on the road in Congress. He comes to a stop, didn't want to run anyone over. They surround his vehicle. They're pounding on his vehicle. They're banging on the vehicle, damaging his vehicle. He looked to his left. Someone has an AK-47 with a face mask on and tactical gear at 10 o'clock at night. He has the gun in a high ready. He figured, man, this guy's trying to kill me or something. This is crazy. He pulled out his gun, his handgun, between the center console and the seat, and fired 5 shots, stopped him. When he fired those shots, the crowd dispersed. They cleared his path. He proceeded on to the next major intersection, made a left turn, stopped, dialed 911, and waited for police to show up. Anyone would do that, unless you want to normalize people wearing face masks and tactical gear, nighttime, AK-47, stopping traffic in the middle of the road and pointing a gun at them. Unless you want to normalize that, something needs to be done. We need to get rid of this DA.
See, here's what I love, though. When I was talking to detectives and even the prosecutors about the video, all the video that took place on 6th Street the night my nephew was killed, is one thing they were worried about is everybody in Texas has a gun. And when the shooting started, apparently they saw other legal gun owners pull their guns, but not shoot. Now that says a lot for legal gun owners, where, they know not to just start spraying a crowd for street cred, as you used before.
That's right.
But if every gun owner in that crowd started shooting, it would have been pretty bad. But legal gun owners, people that are trained like you and I, or people that have always been around guns and respect them, don't do that.
All right, we come back from the break. We're going to talk about that. I want to also go back to the mother in Killeen, Texas. I want to talk to her. I also want to talk about the shooting that happened, before the shooting that happened in Killeen, Texas. There's another shooting that happened in Austin, Texas. Got a video I want to show you to see what happened there and how we're, all these cases are all linked the same. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Coley Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, we all observe something that makes us upset. Whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. By all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle and they are not in contact with your vehicle and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm. Now, in the event that the person shows their own weapon, in particular a firearm, the existence of their weapon would give you reasonable belief.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, I want to go back to the mother in Killeen, Texas. Nicole, bring you back into the conversation. Nicole, there, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I hear a lot in the background there going on, Nicole.
Radio. Hey,
right.
I'm here.
All right, Nicole. So we have Larry Leitner on the phone, and his nephew was the victim of the mass shooting that took place in Austin, Texas in 2021. And then we have, I want to talk about your case one more time of what happened to your son in Killeen, Texas, that took place in 2020. Give us a little recap of what happened there. So your son went to the store in 2020, going into a store. The girl that he was with recognized a gentleman that was in the vehicle. She went over, gave a hug to one of the guys, I guess one of the guys there in the group. Your son looked back at the guy in the vehiel. He didn't like De'Ondre White didn't like the way he looked at him, and he just pulled out a gun and started firing shots. 9 bullets were fired into your vehicle.
So what happened is we got home, and I got a phone call, and someone said they got shot. And I was like, because I never thought it would happen. I said, who got shot? I said, who got shot? So they said Chucky and his girlfriend at Mickey's. So I went to Metroplex Hospital, and I saw my car, and it was riddled with bullet holes, 9. And I'm like, what happened? And my son said he came out of Mickey's. Kiki, that was her name, hugged the female. Like, hey, how you doing? You know, yeah, we good, yeah. Then my son looked at the guy, which was De'Ondre White. My son said he had dreads. He said, Mama, I don't even know him. He had dreads. Because my son looking at him, why would you shoot somebody because they look at you? And that's when he pulled that gun out and shot my car up 9 times.
Because he's a thug. That's why. And that's what
he's
thug.
A young ass.
That's what thugs do. There you go.
Yeah.
All right. And so
my son is terrorized. My son is so, he is terrorized. And I told him, I said, you know what, son? I'll be terrorized too. I was in the Army, and I got shot at, and I was in the Army. I did 10 years. Let somebody pull a gun out and shoot me. I'm ready to shoot you back. But my son was never in the Army. But I understand his fear. I do.
Now, I do want to change gears a little bit and talk about another shooting that took place in Austin, Texas. A young man, Tyler Allison, was actually leaving 6th Street this one particular day. And this happened in 2019. And he was standing across the street from the Austin Police Department waiting for an Uber to pick him up because the Uber couldn't pick him up where he was located. He'd walk down toward I-35 next to the police department and get picked up there. And so we actually have a video of the aftermath of this. And so Tyler goes down, he's standing across the street from the Austin Police Department over by the just across from the gas station there. And he's waiting on his Uber to meet up with it. And all of a sudden, these guys start firing shots at each other. And Tyler gets caught in the crossfire and gets shot in the leg. And we have a video of it. Take a look at this video. All right, so and once again, you have a gentleman there. One guy you saw actually trying to fix the malfunction in the gun. The gun he was actually trying to fire back at the individuals that were shooting at him, and he couldn't fix his malfunction. He had a double feed going on there, and he couldn't correct the double feed. And then the Austin Police Department showed up and said, "Hey, drop the gun." So the guy, sits down, drops the gun. He complies with the police officers. They put him in handcuffs, take him off to, and he was actually shot also. They take him to the hospital. And then also they take Tyler to the hospital. And this guy got into an altercation with the other gentleman. That's why he ended up getting shot at. And Tyler just happened to be a person that's standing on just waiting for an Uber to come pick him up. And we had Tyler scheduled to be here in studio. And unfortunately, his grandfather died. And so he had to travel out of town. So our thoughts and prayers are with Tyler and his family and in their time of need right now, so he can get that taken care of. So he couldn't be here on the show. So he had to fly out of town. But so Tyler sitting at the hospital, and he's sitting in the hospital room. They have him handcuffed to a bed, and he's looking in the room, looking out the room, and he's seeing this guy being wheeled down the hallway, who was actually the guy that we saw in the video here that had the gun, trying to clear the malfunction to shoot back at the people that were shooting at him. They wouldn't let Tyler Allison make any phone calls or anything like that. And he couldn't tell his mother, his father, anyone that he'd been shot. He's in the hospital or anything. And so finally, they did get everything cleared up, knowing he was an innocent victim, just waiting for Uber to come pick him up, and no information is being, given to this guy. And guess what? Guess what all this has in common? Allegedly, we're talking about the same group of people, the same group of individuals, that involved in all the other shootings, the mass shooting that took place in 2021, the shooting that took place in Killeen, Texas, same group of people from Killeen, Texas. That's right, folks, involved in the same shooting. And nothing was done in 2019. It's a continuous problem. We're talking about the same problem. They're every year they have street cred. They have dead bodies on their name. We got street cred. That's right. We got a dead body. I got 3. I have, a dead body. I have a bunch of people that were shot and killed in a mass shooting. That's right. So don't mess with me because I got street cred. And they know they're not going to be held accountable at all because you're not going to hold your DA. You're not going to hold that district attorney, Jose Garza's feet to the fire to make him prosecute, bring these people to trial so they can answer to what they've done. And on the phone, we have one of the victims' mother on the phone, and she has a message for the district attorney. And so, Nicole, what's your message for the DA? What would you like to happen to Mr. White, De'Ondre White?
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
I want to say, you hear me?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
So I called a reporter today. I did. I hope Lightner can hear me. I called a reporter today, and I told the story. And I said, I got a phone call today, and I'm going to be talking to Michael, you. And let me tell you, the reporter told me, I'm interested in your story. So when I called her, she said, I got something else going on right now. It's an accident in Killeen, Texas. And I understand that because she's a reporter. So she's going to come back at me, and she's going to talk to me. She's going to call me. My thing is, I want De'Ondre White to receive every punishment that he can get, because you could have killed my son, and he killed Lightner's nephew. You allowed 19-year-old little boy, and you fired that gun because you don't care. How you get a gun? That's what I want to ask. How you get a gun? Because my son looked at you, and you feel like you could pull a gun out and shoot him? No, sir. No, you can't. And the thing about me is I was a correctional officer for 10 years. I was in the Army for 10 years. You would not, I mean it, would not get away with this. You would not, I mean it. You would not get away with this stuff that you have done. You think is it like I want to say, is it a game? I don't care what I told my son. Listen, radio people, because I'm gonna say that. My son said to me, my son is traumatized. I looked at my son. I said, Drew. I said, check him. I said, Drew, because he's my husband. I said, check him. Don't worry about it. I said, I'm gonna tell you something. De'Ondre White gonna get his. I said, because he got away with it. I said, and he's going to do something else. He thinks he can get away with it. And he did. He did something else. I don't care what people hear. I don't care about De'Ondre White. Because I was a correctional officer. I don't care if De'Ondre White gets the death penalty. De'Ondre White deserves what's coming to him. You're a 19-year-old kid. You carry that gun around, and then you can shoot people. You deserve death penalty. And the day that De'Ondre White stands in front of that judge, I'm going to be there looking at him. I don't care. I have no sympathy for you because you didn't care about nobody else's life. I don't care. De'Ondre White family, I don't care. I don't care. I have no sympathy. I want him to die. And I said that.
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. That's Nicole.
I want him to die.
Nicole is the mother of the young man that was shot, Charles Davis Dre, in Killeen, Texas. We come back from the break. I want to bring in Lawrence Lightner, the uncle of Doug Kantor, to talk about Doug and, what he expects to happen in his case with the murder of Doug Kantor in Austin, Texas, doing that mass shooting. His upcoming visit with the district attorney in Travis County, what he expects to happen there. We come back from the break. We talk about that and more. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jack Jones here, and I get my gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back, and I want to bring into the conversation Lawrence Leitner. He's the uncle of Doug Kantor, who was actually shot and killed during the mass shooting that took place in Austin, Texas in 2021 during the Rot Rally. And so, Lawrence, I want to bring you back into this conversation again and tell us a little bit about Doug, the type of person that Doug was, because people need to understand, that Doug had just graduated college, still doing other studies, had a nice job, and decided to come to Austin to, take a little break, vacation, and was just, having a good time, and just happened to get caught in the crossfire as every single person that was there that was shot that day, and, ended up dying and losing his life, and it changed the lives, his life, your family, and it's just over something just senseless.
Well, Doug, I'm the uncle. Uncles are supposed to be tough on the nephews.
Right.
So I was always as critical with both my nephews as I could be to make sure they're going to get better than, just push them a little bit harder to be better. Doug apparently was a hell of a lot smarter than I ever even knew. It was Ford Motor Company that approached him in his second year of college and offered him a job. And when he graduated, he took the job, and then he went and got his master's. And it's two friends from New York that he met in Texas. One, where his father works for, I believe, as an executive at Atlantic Records, if I'm not mistaken. And the son happened to be down there, and his other friend flew down to Dallas. So they all met in Dallas and just decided to go over to Austin. I don't know if it was really pre-planned. I think it was more of spirit of moment idea. They went over, standing in front of a bar, and the last picture we have is of the three of them on a sort of a balcony across the street from the Moose Knuckle pub. And that was about 20 minutes before he was murdered. They went downstairs, they were standing in line to get in, and that's when the shooting started. And Doug had everything going for him. Fiance, just bought a house, master's degree, and working for a wonderful company.
And I think, and Nick is in the background there, right? Nick Kantor?
No, he's not with me.
He's not. Okay. All right. Yeah. So yeah, it's really sad. It's sad. To go out. And you expect to have fun, enjoy yourself. Go to a bar. Enjoy the nightlife, and then go to the hotel or the Airbnb, whatever, and then go home the next day or the following day or whatever, and go on about your life. You don't expect to lose your life or to be shot. It's just insane, and it shouldn't happen like that. That's not the city that we built. That's not the Austin that we know. And unfortunately, we've elected people into office in this town that have created policies that allow this culture to just persist and to grow in Austin, Texas. And people have got to wake up. You've got to wake up and do something with our city council. We need to elect a different city council, a different mayor. We need to get rid of this district attorney, because if we don't, then nothing is going to change. Because I've shown you case after case where this has actually grown. It started from something else, and they've graduated up to something else. And look, now they've committed a mass shooting, and we had an opportunity to stop it, and we didn't stop it.
A couple of things I noticed is like, okay, so the criminals are running wild. And like you said before, they're not suffering any penalties. But I also keep track of the Austin police. So I get alerts every time something is posted. And I see them in front of microphones almost every day. It's like every time they pull somebody over and give them a parking ticket, they have to get in front of a microphone and explain themselves. Yet they seem to be indicting more police than they are criminals down there. And 6th Street has turned into a kill zone because it's blocked off. It's crowded. And I mean, of course, the businesses need the business down there coming out of COVID, but they've effectively created a kill zone on 6th Street. We walked through there during the day, and it was horrifying. It was like the Bowery in southern Manhattan at its worst back in the 70s. That's what it looked like. Yeah, and it's really horrifying. I mean, we'll be in Texas. We'll be in Austin next week. There's some kind of procedural thing we're going to go to at the courthouse, but the day before, we'll be meeting with Jose. And we're really curious. I mean, what does he have to say? I hope it's not going to be, oh, let's give the poor kid, a deal, let him go home with a bracelet for 2 years, and then we'll give him his gun back so he can kill more people. Hopefully it's not something like that. It's just hard to say these days. Every criminal up here in New York, they throw Molotov cocktails in police cars. They get a bench warrant, and they're back on the street 10 minutes later throwing Molotov cocktails at people walking down a subway stairs. It's insane.
Yeah, something's got to change. Something's got to be different, because all the people do is just graduate to something else. They graduate and it gets worse. And unless we stop it, we're just, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, we're going to have to arm ourselves. Because, police, I can't carry a police officer on my back. So I'm going to have to arm myself to protect myself against these crazies that are out here.
Well, the problem with that is just like that couple who were in front of their house when they broke through the gates. What was that? Missouri, I think.
In Missouri, that's correct.
The two lawyers, they're breaking through their gates. They didn't even fire a shot. And the people doing that, nothing happened to them. The two people that assumed they needed to defend their own home are still fighting court battles.
Right.
So, I mean, it's pretty much the elected officials that have to go in a big way.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stand up and do something. We need to elect different people into office. We're talking about all this stuff that's happening on the federal level as well. Turning innocent people into felons overnight. So just all these different things that are happening right now. We've got to stand up and say, no, enough is enough.
Let's not kid ourselves. They're not doing this because they decided, hey, by the way, let's let all the criminals loose. They're being paid to do this. They're being paid by the George Soroses of the world, the entire liberal wing of the party. They're not doing this because they just wanted to. They like the money and the attention.
And we hope, that someone at the governor's office was able to hear this program, and so they can look at the things that are happening and how this is growing and festering. I hope that someone at the Texas Attorney General's office was actually paying attention today, and how this is growing and festering, and how these young men are graduating to be mass shooters, committing crimes, and they're not even supposed to be in possession of firearms in the first place. And so I hope they're all paying attention to this, and I hope that the citizens of Travis County, Austin, Texas, are paying attention, because we have a district attorney that's not holding them accountable and prosecuting these people for committing crimes and then graduating, committing mass shootings, and nothing has been done. So pay attention to what's happening. I hope you remember this come election time.
If I just say two more things.
Go for it.
Right after my nephew was murdered, we received a call from the mayor, Adler. And he was gracious, but within 24 hours, he was on TV telling everybody we need better background checks for the 15-year-old, the 17-year-old, and a 19-year-old who couldn't possibly have filled out an application to get a background check to begin with. And then the second call we got was from Governor Abbott, who was as gracious as can be, and he was not happy with what happened. I mean, he is 100% against what's going on by the elected officials in Austin. So it was very refreshing speaking with him. And he gave me his cell number, and I did need to ask him for help about 2 days later on another issue. And his people were right there to help us. So I think it's be nice if Austin got taken over by the state.
We'll see what happens. Well, maybe the people will actually, surprise us and actually stand up and vote and put someone different in office the next election.
I hope so. Pretty much the entire country.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Leitner. That's Lawrence Leitner. He's the uncle.
Thank you, Michael. I'll see you next week when I'm down there.
Yes, sir. The uncle of Doug Kantor, who was killed on 6th Street in the mass shooting that took place in 2021. We come back from the break. We're going to change gears a little bit. I want to talk about the other news that we're talking about happening in LA, the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm going to talk about this witching, this occult thing that's happening there. We also going to talk about, stay in California there and talk about some other things that are going on there. And then we're going to come back to Texas a little bit and talk about Texas, because we had a tornado this past week. That's right. And I'm going to tell you why I like my American vehicles, because they're like a rock. They stand up strong. And also, we're going to jump over to Florida and talk about, some gun-toting spring breakers in Florida, and talk about that. And then jump over to Georgia, and talk about what's going on in Georgia. 5 charged after illegally trafficking 500 guns from Georgia to California. That's right, legal guns going from Georgia to California. Going to talk about that. We come back from the break. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs, but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights, and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so, we make laws for thee, but not for me, because when you're an elected official, you're special, and you get to do whatever you want to do. So let's go to Delaware, home of the President of the United States, Joe Biden. So apparently,
come on, man.
President Biden, he's requested a variance to build a wall. Zach, I said the president wants to build a wall.
What?
Yes, around his house.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Around his house in Delaware.
Wasn't his platform all about not building the wall?
That's what he said. Yeah, we're not gonna build a wall.
You know the thing.
But he's gonna build one around his house in Delaware. So
Funny how they do that, isn't it?
The Bidens have plans to build new barriers around their Delaware home as the nation has faced record levels of illegal border crossings after the president canceled border wall construction projects along the southern border. Now, the report was first shared by, in Delaware by the Cape Gazette. And so the variance request from First Lady Jill Biden seeks variances from the maximum fence height requirement for proposed fences and was scheduled for discussion after the Sussex County Board of Adjustments on April the 4th. And so months ago, the Cape Gazette reported that the Department of Homeland Security with the Secret Service as the sub-agency awarded a $455,000 contract to this building company to purchase and install a security fence and wall around the Biden complex. He needs to build a wall. Can't have a wall down by the border, but he needs to build a wall around his house.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Yeah, your mama. So, so at the time, the expected completion date was by the end of 2021. And to date, the fence has not been constructed. And a public notice published in the March 15 edition of the Gazette appears to explain why. It added that citing the pending variance request, that the application's plans include a 4-foot tall stone wall along the front of the house, as well as a 10-foot tall fence with stone columns along the sides and 10-foot tall aluminum fence along the rear of the house, according to the report. So we'll see what happens. He needs a wall, but you can't have one.
Come on, man.
Yeah. Okay. Let's come on back to Texas. Boy, I tell you, Texas. I tell you, there's nothing like my American vehicles. I love my American vehicles. You know that? That's right. I love my GMCs. I love my Chevys. I love my Fords. That's right.
I've seen you driving an Acura, though.
Hey, shh. Yeah,
what's up with that?
Hey, quiet. That's not
God's gonna get you for that.
I like Chevrolet, too.
That's not my vehicle. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So here's what happened. I guess we've all seen it by now because millions of people have seen this video. And that's the famous red Chevy truck that gets blown through the tornado that happened on Monday. I tell you, if you didn't know that we're having a tornado or bad weather on Monday, if you didn't get the alerts on your phone, so sad, too bad, because let me tell you, everyone was running for cover. People were closing. The bank closed early. You know, different schools were letting out early. Everyone's like, let's go home. It's going to be storms. And so people were heading home. You should have been home by 5 o'clock, 5:30. If you were not, then you got caught like this guy here in the rain. And so, man, I tell you, this red truck, man, tornado picks this sucker up. He spins him around. He flips him over. And, man, it flips back over back on the 4 tires there. And he kept on driving. I tell you, I know this kid was crying like crazy. And thanking the Lord that he's still alive. Oh, man, something else. I hope, and I'm sure everyone had a chance to see that video. It was amazing, you know. But my heart goes out to that young man because that was a rough experience there. But I think he's getting a new truck. There's a GoFundMe page there, and so I think they've able to raise enough money to buy him a brand new truck, so he'll be just fine. Let's go back. Let's change gears again. Let's go to California. Oh, you know what? Before we go to California. Oh, it's in California. Let's talk about the in L.A. You know, the L.A. police are being trained in ancient occult practices of witching. Zach, what in the world is that? What is witching?
Witching is where you hold 2 rods that are bent at a 90-degree angle, and you have the shorter end of the rod in your hand, and then the other end you hold horizontally in both hands, each a rod.
And okay? Jesus tells you where the dead body is.
And you basically hold them so that they are horizontal and also parallel to each other.
And the Lord finds the body.
Then you start walking, and the way that I have done it before, I was taught by this old rancher. He swears by it too. And this guy digs a bunch of pipes and has a well on his land, does all kinds of stuff.
Then Jesus comes down and says, there's the body.
Yeah, you just start walking, and then when you cross underground water, then the 2 rods will actually start to cross.
And then the Lord shows up and says, there's the body.
God's gonna get you for that.
But he was showing me this because I was looking for a busted pipe underground to dig it up and replace it, and found the pipe.
Okay. And then Lord shows up and says, there's the body. That's how they solve crime? Is that what they're doing to use to find bodies in LA?
They say that they can use this to find gold in the ground, water, and bodies.
Bodies. Okay.
And then the Lord shows up.
And then the Lord shows up and shows them where's the body. Okay. I'm going to stick to the science.
Because I represent science.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, that's what you're going to stick with, huh?
I'm sticking with that.
Sticking with that science.
That's right. That's right. All right. So, oh, man, there's another story coming out of L.A. The L.A. Sheriff's Department. Man, this is crazy. So apparently, dozens of L.A. sheriff deputies allegedly to be tattooed members of law enforcement gangs. Did you hear about that?
No.
You didn't hear about that?
Law enforcement gangs.
Law enforcement gangs. Okay, so the gang
Aren't they a gang to begin with?
The gang scandal within the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department has flared up again, with the country's top watchdog accusing the L.A. Sheriff's Department brass of stonewalling this investigation into tattooed gang members within the department, and the department accusing the inspector general of an unhealthy obsession of attack. And so the controversy has already sparked a deeper probe of gang culture within one of the nation's largest law enforcement bodies. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Civilian Oversight Commission announced Thursday the launch of a full-scale investigation into deputy gangs.
LA has all kinds of just crazy stuff that happens with their law enforcement. Don't they?
Yeah, using sticks and twigs, and now we got gangs.
Remember Rodney King? That was LAPD right there.
Yeah, and also Mr. What's that dude that was running? I can't think of his name for anything.
Forrest Gump?
No, not
What are you
Forrest.
talking about?
He was a police officer, and yeah, it'll come to me. It'll come to me later. It'll come to me once we're off the air.
Running.
Yeah, it'll come to me.
What's the situation?
He was actually involved in a shooting. He was a former police officer involved in a shooting, and he was running from house to house to house. They eventually did this huge manhunt and tracked him down.
Oh, you mean the guy that was fed up with the department?
Yes.
And then he released the manifesto.
That guy.
Dorn, right?
Dorn.
Uh-huh.
Jason Dorn? No.
No, it was Born.
Born. Okay. Well, it's all the same to me. All right. So, and then, you know what? Let's go to Miami, Florida, because we always got to talk about Florida every show, let me tell you. So over in Miami Beach, it's packed with visitors from around the country every year for spring break, right? So certainly the guns that are there didn't come on an airplane. So what happened was, so apparently at least 100 guns were seized in the past 5 weeks during the spring break season, in addition to 2 shootings earlier this week that left 5 people injured in the heart of South Beach's Ocean Drive nightlife scene. So, man, it seems like things are going crazy in South Beach. So separately, police said that they arrested 618 people between the start of the season and March 20th. Sunday was also the busiest day in history at Miami International Airport. Since February the 18th, which is when they amplified the staffing there, more than 50% of the citywide arrests were of people who reside in Miami-Dade County. So all the thugs come from Miami, not from out of the state or the city. And so one of them is a 19-year-old Derek Mitchell, 19, a resident of nearby Hialeah, who police accuse of injuring 2 women during a shootout on Ocean Drive around 1 a.m. Monday, on a Monday there. So I tell you, it's just almost like Austin.
Correction, that was Christopher Dorner.
Oh,
LAPD
Christopher,
officer.
run, Christopher, run. I remember that. That's what I remember. Yeah. All right. Let's jump over to Georgia real quick. So in Georgia, man, you have 5 people charged with, and this is a good one here, 5 charged after illegally trafficking 500 guns from Georgia to California. 5 people illegally trafficking more than 500 guns, I want to say that again, from Georgia to California, where they would sell them on the black market for more than $160,000 over nearly 2 years, federal prosecutors said on Thursday. The federal investigation began after authorities discovered that a gun used in, used in a shooting. I tell you, unreal. And you know what? You ever heard of that Capitol rioters going to prison party? As a Capitol rioter, he had a party scheduled where he was going to prison. And they said, not so fast, young man. They're over in Bradenton, Florida, back in Florida again, where a young guy was supposed to go to prison. And he said, hey, I'm going to prison because I got sentenced in the January attack on the Capitol, whatever. And so they're going to sentence me. And he said, hey, I want to have a party. He said, no, we're going to cancel that party. That's it for us today, folks. As always, more guns equals less crime. You go out there and buy yourself a gun. Listen to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.